The film you are about to see represents a significant breakthrough in the advancing science of the motion picture. You are about to witness history in the making.
Welcome to another exciting episode of On Air with South Oakley College.
Thanks for tuning in.
I'm Ethan.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Cassie.
And today you're in for a very special treat indeed.
Today our theme is space exploration.
The final frontier.
And we get to talk to a real astronaut.
Well, we kind of do.
One of our own physics teachers, Mr. Ram, recently came back from a special conference at NASA.
The National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
Specifically the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Wait, I thought he went to NASA in Oakley.
There's no NASA in Oakley.
How often do you see a spaceship taking off from Baker's Road?
Point taken.
So anyway, Mr. Ram met some real astronauts and made some really cool contacts. So we're going to be hearing a special message from one of those astronauts later in the show.
But first, it's time for our What's Been Happening segment.
It's called Some Kind of Issue.
And today's issue is...
Space exploration.
Such excitement.
Wait, is that really an issue?
Shh. So we'll all be living on Mars in the next 5 years?
What?
Yes. What?
Well, I guess I'm exaggerating slightly.
You are prone to hyperbole.
What I meant was, the human race will soon be sending people to explore Mars.
That's more like it.
I guess you could say that Ethan's become a bit more down to earth. Get it? NASA joke.
Oh, we got it all right. Anyway, have we got a semi-direct link to the International Space Station right now? Who wants to hear from a real space astronaut?
Me.
I do too.
What about our audience?
Yeah! Okay, cool. We're going across now to astronaut Scott Kelly on the International Space Station.
Hi, I'm Scott Kelly, a member of the Expedition 43 crew on the International Space Station, flying almost 260 miles above you. A month ago, I left Earth for a year in space, longer than any U.S. astronaut has flown in orbit on a single mission. NASA is studying the effects of long-term exposure to weightlessness and how this data will pave the way for us to explore Mars in the future. Fulfilling my dream of becoming a Navy pilot and ultimately an astronaut required a tremendous amount of training in science, engineering, and math. And I wouldn't be here speaking to you today from orbit without all of the great teachers who motivated and inspired me. So thank you, teachers. We owe you a lot. To all of you students, look how cool math and science can be. And kids, keep up the good work and do great things. We're all proud of you.
Wow.
I can't believe he's a real person.
I can't believe you just said that.
And he spoke to us.
Well, he sent out a message, so he kinda spoke to us.
Okay, guys, we actually do get to speak to a real person now.
I'm a real person, and you just spoke to me.
That is true.
Okay, let me qualify that statement a little better. Now it's interview time.
Who are we interviewing today?
It's on the running sheet.
Oh yeah, I was acting as a proxy for our audience who didn't get a copy of the running sheet.
I knew that.
And now we'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Ram.
Thank you, guys.
Alright, the first thing we wanted to ask you is, would you have considered joining the expedition to be one of the first people to live on Mars? Read that.
Oh, I certainly would, except I'm not young enough. At my age, the likelihood of that happening in my lifetime is very unlikely. Occupy Mars is 30 years away.
Where did your interest in space travel begin?
Probably when I was a university student and watched the moon landing, when Buzz Aldrin and the other astronauts arrived on the moon in 1969.
How did the NASA trip come about?
Well, it was actually an idea of our principal, Miss Kosiaris, and she suggested it would be a good opportunity for me to go there, and I went there as a professional development and to do the groundwork for a possible tour by students from this school to NASA in the near future.
That's cool. Why do you think it would be important for humanity to pursue space travel?
Well, the history of mankind has involved exploration. So the first people that we know of originated in Africa, and they have populated the world. And you probably know from history the exploration that occurred in the Middle Ages and later, where various European countries explored the other continents that they didn't know about, and hence there's a European outpost here in Australia. Well, I think that in mankind there's an explorer gene, and I think that exists today. So out of the population of the world, there's going to be thousands of people who are fascinated with the whole idea. And a lot of them end up working at space agencies such as NASA and other agencies in other countries. And so collectively, I think mankind wants to explore the heavens. We know a lot about Earth. There's a lot about Earth we don't know still, but there's a drive to go out there, and that's manifested by the work of big organisations such as NASA. Hence their plan to go to Mars within 30 years. They've actually launched a competition, and you can be involved in it. They've sent out a question to people around the world, and it's a competition, to come up with ideas that will make it possible to live on Mars. Because it's not a very habitable place. There's no oxygen. It's 96% carbon dioxide. And there's a little bit of nitrogen, a little bit of argon, but nothing else. And so there's no oxygen, so that makes it pretty hard. Also, the temperatures are not really good on Mars. On a good day, it gets up to 35 degrees in the equator. And then at night, at the equator, it drops down to -80. So.
Typical Aussie day, I reckon.
Melbourne. So who was the most interesting person you met at NASA?
Oh, it'd have to be Don Thomas, the astronaut that everyone met at the day I was there, where we had a big lunch. A lunch for 240 people, lots of children and adults, and the group of people from Australia and the United Kingdom that I was part of, a teacher group. We were a teacher tour. And after lunch, everyone got to meet the astronaut who gave a talk during our lunch, and we got a photograph with him as well.
What was the coolest piece of space equipment that you saw?
It would have to be the Saturn V. It was a fantastic rocket that took the Apollo mission up there. And it's about 130 metres long in a gigantic... They've got a version of it that was going to go up in space, but after they closed the Apollo space program down, they kept this one for a display. And it's a pretty awesome piece of technology. It's massive. And it was all to get just 3 guys up on the moon and to safely get them back to Earth again.
And what advice would you give to a student who might want to be pursuing a career with NASA?
Well, I think it's very wise for them to consider lots of different things. There's science, for example, and maths, and ultimately engineering, biology, chemistry, physics, all those pursuits, plus all other technical types of expertise. To be an astronaut, though, you seem to be having to have this sort of a career path at the moment. All the astronauts and cosmonauts have a background in, when they've been studying at university, they've done such as aerospace engineering, aerodynamics, they've got their pilot's license, and then they've joined an air force. The 6 astronauts up there at the moment, one of them is an Italian lady, and she's typical of that with that background. She did a number of degrees, and then she became a fighter pilot in the Italian Air Force, and that seems to be for that type of job. But there are so many different jobs. The number of people who actually got involved in the Apollo program was over 400,000. Countries like America at that stage were in a race with Russia to see who would be the first to get a man on the moon. And that project had total backing from the President of the United States, and they put any amount of money into it. Money is not such an easy thing to get now, so science organisations don't have as much access to money or employees now, but I think it probably is growing again, especially when you consider all the countries in the world that are interested in it, of which there are quite a few. So hopefully you children, you young people, could have a role maybe in the future, and possibly the people who are being born right now could be the ones that get to live on Mars in 30 years' time.
Mr. Ram, thanks so much for joining us today.
And thank you too.
So many amazing stories. I hope I get to go to NASA one day.
Me too.
Let's organise an excursion.
Sounds good.
Isn't it time for our next segment?
It is indeed.
All our other segments have been so exciting, I'm not sure I'm able to maintain the kind of energy for the next segment.
Let's take it down a notch then. Kick back and relax, Cassie, because it's time for...
Who's been plagiarising classic movies?
There's nothing relaxing about plagiarism.
There is if you're not the one doing the work.
Point taken.
So anyway, who has been plagiarising classic movies this week?
Well, firstly, NASA.
What?
The whole idea of landing a person on the moon in 1969 was done earlier and better by Stanley Kubrick in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
But to do that in real life is like...
I know, I'm kidding.
But do you know who has taken more than a teaspoon of inspiration from 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Who?
Well, pretty much every space movie ever.
Well, yeah, but most recently, have you seen Gravity?
Silly, nobody can see gravity.
He has a point. We can, however, experience gravity, but no one can see it.
We can see the effects of gravity.
You're right!
Ouch.
Ouch!
I knew what you meant. She just wanted to push you off your chair.
Well done.
So anyway, here is a clip from Stanley Kubrick 1968 classic 2001: A Space Odyssey.
And here's a clip from Gravity, directed by Alfonso Cuarón.
I think the similarities speak for themselves, really.
To be fair, once you've decided to set your movie in space, there's a fairly limited number of plot options.
True, even George Lucas said Star Wars never would have happened without 2001: A Space Odyssey.
It's really a great movie, so make sure to check it out if you haven't seen it.
It will make you question your very existence.
No need to frighten our audience, but yes, it will.
Anyway, guys, that's all we have for this week. Make sure you tune in at the same time in the next 2 weeks.
And
And
don't forget to subscribe.
subscribe.